Hiya, so for this one we are right at the top of the Northern Line in the North London suburb of Edgware. Now this has been a pretty controversial plan, and if I show you this proposed image you might see why. We see all of these huge towering blocks sitting in the middle of what is predominantly quite a suburban area with these sort of 2-3 story houses. So here's what the site looks like at the moment. You can see that it's kind of a shopping centre and then this sort of vast expanse of car parking. But that right there, that sort of railway line there, that is the Northern Line, and that offers a train into central London every 3 minutes. So it's a very, very well connected area. In fact, it's probably better connected than a lot of small cities and sort of larger towns in the UK. And then right next to that is this huge expanse of undeveloped land, which many would say is a sort of a wasted opportunity, especially in a city like London, which has such a chronic housing crisis, which we'll get onto in a second. So this is what is planned for that land. It'll introduce a serious amount of density into what is currently a pretty typical suburban area. There's going to be nearly 3,400 new homes built here. 1,150 of those will be affordable. A new shopping centre, a new leisure centre, a transport interchange, health centre, and 4.8 hectares of green open space. And this is effectively being pitched as like a new town centre for Edgware, sort of a very much an expansion of the existing town centre in Edgware. So there'll be a new theatre, a new cinema, a new library, as well as all those shops, as well as all that new public space, as well as a new transport interchange. Creating these kind of like third places is really important and sort of building up our town centres. We've had so many decades of building like retail parks for these sorts of things outside our cities and town centres, and really the only thing that has done over the years is kill our town centres. And so a plan like this, which is sort of reintroducing life, reintroducing investment and development into the heart of our town centres, I think is a good thing, and I think this will really help Edgware. And according to the developers, there's going to be a range of different homes here, so family homes, starter homes, retirement homes, later living homes. It's not just going to be 1- and 2-story apartment buildings for people that look like me. It's going to be a place that is sort of for everyone, and I know that people are very, very skeptical about that. I know that there'll be some of you watching this video and saying, oh, you can't have families living in apartments, but that is the done thing in Europe. And I think if we're going to be focusing on solving the sort of the UK's housing crisis, I think we kind of needed a cultural shift in this country. So there's going to be a range of different homes. There's going to be 1,150 affordable homes. I haven't seen what the breakdown of those affordable homes will look like. Presumably there'll be social housing and intermediate housing and all those different tenures included within those affordable homes. But the bit about this proposal that has drummed up the most controversy, I think, is definitely building heights. As I mentioned earlier, this is predominantly quite a suburban area, 2-story buildings, that sort of thing. Really not much height in this area. Edgware is not an area that is known for being in central London or sort of, you know, being known for sort of height or anything like that. And yet here is a plan that is going to be introducing several buildings that are over 20 stories into this area. So if we look on Google Maps, we can see quite clearly that these are all sort of, your very, very typical British suburban 2- and 3-story suburban houses and suburban streets. Really, the tallest buildings in Edgware at the moment are these two here. I know that this one has been built in the last few years, and that is currently the tallest building in the area by far. Other than that, the surrounding urbanity is very much these sort of like, 3-story buildings on the high street, about 6 stories there. But yeah, this is the sort of the existing urbanity, very much a sort of a mid-density, I would say, mid to low density sort of area. And there's the Northern Line. So this station here offers a train every 3 minutes into central London. Now, it's the Northern Line which kind of brought development to this area initially. Before the Northern Line arrived, this was a predominantly rural area, which we'll get onto in a second. As I said, you're going to be having buildings up to 29 stories in height here. And that's really the sort of height that up to now, we've only kind of seen in zones 1 and 2 in London, whereas Edgware is in, let me just check a tube map. Edgware is zone 5. Yeah, so it's very much, I can't really think of anywhere else. I guess Croydon. Croydon has a lot of tall buildings, but that was already quite an established sort of town centre anyway. I mean, Croydon's more like a city, honestly. So to be seeing 29 stories in Edgware is ambitious. It's a lot, and it shows how far London is now developing. And especially if you look for miles out here, miles all around, it really is a very, very suburban area. And that right there, that is the edge of London. So you're very, very close to the edge of London. But there's an argument to be made, which is that if we don't build high here, that won't be the edge of London for long. London will just continue to spread out further and further and further, and the people of Edgware will lose access to their countryside. But let's get on with the thing. Although this plan is going to be introducing a pretty serious amount of density to the site, there are plans to create a new nature park as well, and you can see that here, Deansbrook Nature Park. This will also link to the old railway path to Mill Hill Broadway. I think this was originally proposed to be an extension of the Northern Line. That never happened, and it doesn't look like it ever will, so that has now been turned into a sort of a pedestrian and cycle path. And so the plan is to sort of link that into the heart of Edgware, so you'll be able to sort of walk and cycle over down to Mill Hill quite easily. And this new nature park kind of acts as a buffer zone between this development and the sort of the more suburban development to the southeast there. Hey everyone, just a quick message to say that we're now approaching 10,000 subscribers on this channel, and to say thank you for all of the support that you've kind of given me over the last year. It's really helped me kind of improve and grow the channel. You might have noticed on my last few videos I finally got a new microphone, which is thanks to advice from you guys. Hello, thank you for that advice. And that was down to advice from my commenters, so if you have any similar sort of suggestions or ideas for ways that I can improve the channel or do new videos, please do comment them below, because I read every single comment. And I'm really, really grateful for every single one, because I'm still learning this whole kind of YouTube thing. I think I'm still under 15 videos, and I think every video has kind of been learning new things for me. I'm having a great time making these videos and growing this channel, and I've got hundreds of ideas for new videos. A lot of them have come from my commenters. Again, if you have any more ideas for future videos, please do pop them below. My next video is one comparing Dutch and UK urbanism from a recent trip I had to the Netherlands. I'm also planning a street view time travel video in Manchester, and I was recently filming in Barcelona as well while I was on holiday there. So I've got loads more ideas for videos in London, but we're starting to branch out into sort of other cities as well. So if you don't want to miss out on similar content, please subscribe below. Let's get this community up to 10,000 city heads. Let's continue with the video. And it also looks like there's a lot of different green spaces within the development. There is a plan to plant 400 new trees as part of this scheme. So we've got Edgware Gardens there, Edgware Green, and a bit of a green buffer between the sort of the suburban houses and the sort of the development itself. I've just realised I've had my headphones in this whole time, sorry. Anyway, and yeah, this is the square in the middle, and it reminds me a lot of Elephant Park, which, if you've watched my Elephant and Castle video, you'll know I'm a really big fan of this kind of biophilic, green sort of, you know, stuff. I think gone are the days when we build these new public squares and it's literally just a paved area that looks really, really depressing in the rain. I think we're looking at, you know, grass and nature, bringing nature into the heart of these schemes is really, really good. And if they can pull that off, if they actually make it look like that, that'll be great. Let me just see, because these look like some pretty mature trees here. So I'm just gonna see if, you know, okay. Yeah, that's cool. So there are some trees in the middle of the car park here, and I wonder if, I bet they are going to retain those trees, just like they did at Elephant Park. At Elephant Park, if you remember, please do go and watch that video. Only if you want, I mean, I'm not going to force it on you, obviously. But if you remember Elephant Park, there was a load of trees planted as part of the Haygate estate. And they basically kept those with the sort of the redevelopment, and as a result, the park at Elephant and Castle looks like it's been there forever, when it hasn't. It's only about 2 or 3 years old. It hasn't been there forever, but it looks like it has been because they kept those mature trees. And if they're going to do the same with these sort of car park trees here, that would be really, really cool as well. So here we're looking at the sort of the station entrance, and just to do a little before and after, that is what this looks like at the moment. You have this sort of turning circle right outside the station itself. They're redoing the bus interchange as part of the plans as well, so that bus road will be going, and what you'll get instead is this sort of quite pedestrian focused new sort of square outside the town centre. So the entrance to the town centre, sort of the gateway to the town centre from the train station, will be very much improved as well. And again, sort of trees here. we're looking at artists' impressions, so very often they put trees in just to make it look a bit nicer. But I do think, you know, nowadays they are putting a lot of trees into developments and things like that, so you can probably assume that those trees will be there. I don't know. I don't quite know if there will actually be a rooftop swimming pool in Edgware. I don't know, maybe, but yeah, that's kind of okay, sure. So here we're looking from Hemming Road, which is, I'll point it out on the map. There's so many roads that are named after fish. Why is that? Anyway, in this view, we can very much see the sort of the juxtaposition in height that is going to be taking place here. We have these 2-storey, 2.5-storey semi-detached houses, and then this huge increase in kind of height. Now, as part of the London plan, there is a sort of an overarching plan to stack as much density as possible around major transport interchanges in London. So we've seen it at Canary Wharf already, we've definitely seen it around the city, Elephant and Castle, of course, Vauxhall, Croydon, North Acton. So around these sort of major transport interchanges, we're beginning to see a lot of tall buildings. And that makes sense. You want people to be living and working at a high density around major transport hubs because it maximizes the number of people that live and work and visit places that are close to the transport network, and therefore they can use the tube and the buses to kind of travel around rather than using their cars and sort of clogging up the roads. So it makes a lot of sense. But I think this is, apart from maybe like, yeah, Acton, this is probably one area where I'm like, yeah, this is a very, very noticeable step change in density for the area. And you can very much see it there. And as I mentioned, there's going to be a new cinema, and here we are kind of looking at it. I love these green tiles. That's so cool. I've mentioned on several videos now how I love this trend towards kind of using glazed tiles, or oh, they're not tiles. Someone commented on my video, they're not tiles. They're not tiles, they're something else, but they look like tiles. I'm sorry, I forgot. And there's this curved frontage here, and they're clearly kind of referencing those original sort of 20s cinemas. And I think, this is another public square here. Massive on the trees. I mean, you can probably tell from my background, I like plants. And again, this looks like a very sort of active square. It's an artist's impression. It's always going to be, you know, a nice kind of scene. So you've always got to take these pictures with a pinch of salt, but the sort of architecture itself looks quite promising, I think. And yeah, here we go again. So a lot of trees, a lot of plants. And I think developments 20 years ago, we just saw a lot of just paved squares that look quite windswept in, you know, when it rains and when it's windy and things like that. But nowadays, these architecture and placemaking is really, really changing for the better, I think. And we're starting to see these squares that just look a little bit more human scale, a little bit more lived in, a little bit more thought through. Very much liking this kind of active frontage here, restaurants spilling into the street. That'll make the square feel more active pretty much at all times of day. And yeah, this is Station Square, as they're calling it. So this is, again, that kind of station gateway that we mentioned earlier. Here's what it looks like at the moment. And so you can see that this is going to be definitely an improvement in terms of pedestrian focus. Definitely just improving the pavements and the quality of the sort of how the space sort of feels, introducing, again, more greenery, more planting, and a bit more active frontage, just to extend the sort of the high street in Edgware here. And with that active frontage, you have these restaurants and things spilling into the street. Whether or not these will all become sort of restaurants and bakeries and whatever, we don't really know at this point, I don't think. Probably the developers don't either. But this seems to be the kind of division. Lots of active frontage. It looks like they're going to sort of improve how the road looks a little bit as well. So definitely more trees, definitely narrowing that roadway a little bit by the looks of it, and introducing a bit more pedestrian focus, make it feel a little bit safer for pedestrians. Now, it'll give Edgware a really impressive skyline, but you can't help but notice, can you, how it dominates these 2-storey suburban homes. And the character of the area will be significantly altered. But this isn't the first time that the character of Edgware has been significantly altered. This is a picture of Edgware in 1924, so right after the Northern Line, right after the tube arrived in Edgware. And this picture here was actually taken right above the site in question. You can see there's the tube station, and then where this picture was taken is basically above where this new development is planned, and you can see that the area surrounding that is very much pretty rural, and Edgware was still a village. In the 10 years following the tube's arrival in Edgware, the area saw a 350% increase in population, as a lot of those fields surrounding Edgware were converted into suburban London, basically. This sort of once quite isolated rural village was swallowed into London's suburbia very, very quickly. Now, a lot of the houses in Edgware were built in the Art Deco style, which was quite synonymous with that era, with the 20s. So the one pictured here is quite common in the area. It's known as the Soundstripe style because of its sort of curved bay windows, and they were very much built all over this kind of area. And we see this a lot wherever the tube was expanded to in London, the suburban sprawl generally followed. That started with, of course, the Metropolitan line going out to the northwest of London, the tail end of the 1800s, but it continued all the way basically until greenbelt restrictions were introduced in the 50s, I want to say, 50s, 40s, yeah. And basically because the tube offered a very, very easy and quick connection into central London, it for the first time meant that people could actually live outside central London, get a bit more space, get a bit of a garden for a much lower price than they would have done in the city, but they could still get into central London in what, like half an hour, 45 minutes, if that. So this sort of thing was extremely popular. Posters like these were produced to sort of advertise these houses themselves and the new tube connection into London. I love that poster on the left, that's awesome. And then yeah, this tube poster is advertising how fast you can get into town and the sort of the bus connections into the surrounding sort of rural areas. They were rural areas at that time. But what I'm getting at here is that the character of Edgware changed considerably from a rural area to a suburban one 100 years ago. Maybe this development is just a sort of a natural evolution of that. Urban areas have always changed and evolved. If anything, it's a sign of progress, and the alternative is stagnation. Throughout my research for this video, I've come across quite a lot of local news articles sort of saying about how Edgware town centre is in decline and the high street is closing down and things like that. And that is part of a national trend, but I think a development like this, which will bring 5,000 new residents into the town and create a new destination, that can't hurt. I think that will be really, really good for the town. But the UK, and particularly London, has this kind of chronic housing crisis. We desperately need to build more homes than we have been doing in recent years, in recent decades even. You know, Labour has this plan to build 1.5 million homes. And actually, if you go even further back, if you look at how many homes we were building before the Second World War compared to how many we're building now, we're actually missing about 4.5 million homes. There's 183,000 homeless people in London, 320,000 people on social housing waiting lists, and rents and house prices are just spiralling upwards, as everybody knows. So we need new homes basically, and the question therefore is, where do we provide them? Either we put them on a site like this, which is right next to a tube station, which means that people can take the tube into town or take the bus elsewhere. They don't necessarily need a car. They don't need to pile pressure onto the roads and create more traffic. Or we can continue to sprawl suburbia for miles and miles outwards. And that has a huge impact on council expenditure, because basically for every suburban area you create a load more streets for local councils to have to maintain. And of course, because everything becomes more spread out, people have to drive to places, and that adds more pressure onto the road network, creates more congestion as well, which that's not an ideal solution either. So if you want more traffic congestion and for your council taxes to go up, then suburban sprawl is great. But if you don't want more traffic congestion and you want your council taxes to stay the same or even maybe even go down, and you want more people paying in to council tax revenues, then supporting high density development in sustainable, well-connected areas is a pretty good idea. I decided to have a little look on Rightmove, and this is what I found for houses under or around 700,000, 4-bed family houses, semi-detached, detached, within a sort of a 0.5 mile radius of Edgware Station. There's four family houses for sale within a sort of a 0.5 mile radius of Edgware. And the reason for that is that a lot of these family homes that were built 100 years ago have now been subdivided into HMOs instead, which means that they're not really for families anymore. And the fact that they've been divided into HMOs means that there is a huge amount of demand for housing in this area. I think there's an argument there to say that if we built loads of homes at a high density next to the train station, you might even see some of these HMOs return back to being homes for families. So it could benefit the overall kind of area and actually return the area into being more of a family area as it was originally intended. And I think if you look at Edgware, it does occupy this sort of suburban rural transition zone. So only about a mile out of Edgware, you are in the countryside. So I think with this plan, it's only really the town centre itself that is going to change drastically. Obviously, it's a huge change in the town centre, but what it means is that the rest of Edgware keeps its suburban character, maybe even improves on its sort of family suburban character, and it keeps its access to the nearby countryside, which very much surrounds the area. It means that that countryside isn't just converted into more suburban sprawl. We need to build these homes. We may as well build them at an efficient high density in the centre of town, which gives people that option to travel around without a car, without putting loads of pressure on local roads, without increasing council tax expenditure, crucially. So plans have been submitted. They've not been determined yet. I'll put a link in the description to the planning application itself if you want to go and make your comments. There have been thousands and thousands and thousands of comments on this planning application. Some of them objections and some of them letters of support. It really has divided opinion in Edgware. I really want to know what you think. What do you think of this development plan itself, and what do you think of the argument of developing at a high density to avoid suburban development? Which would you sort of prefer? Would you prefer it if London sprawled out into the greater southeast and became this sort of LA style metropolis, or would you prefer it if we used land more efficiently and kind of actually built up what we already have done in London to preserve the countryside for future generations? Yeah, let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.